I don't think it's really helpful to speculate on which group is more prone to a particular group think. Like we're all going to be prone to be manipulated in certain ways. And then it's more helpful to look at certain people and say, how are you evaluating things? How are you taking in counter evidence and that sort of stuff? And I think the alarming thing is that secularists talk a very good talk, and they're all about science and the virtues of questioning and not taking dogma and whatnot. But then they come up with a pretty shallow and shoddy dogma that they all are like, oh yeah, this is great. And you're like, uh, this doesn't make any sense. And so uh it can be, I think it can be a little bit disconcerting and alarming to see people go from the ever modest, skeptical proponent of inquiry to, say, for example, the uh people calling the government to tell on you for not wearing a mask in your own car kind of thing.
Right, right.
And think, well, okay, maybe we can't just consider any singular system the be all end all, and it actually depends on uh, not only mouthing values but acting them out and making sure that they lead to good outcomes.
My second question would be, honestly, if the repercussions of being a nihilist in today's society culminates in a complete lack of meaning. And so there's no drive to accomplish, there's no drive to do anything because there's no motivation, there's nothing beyond yourself that is pulling you to some great personal success or success on a grand scale. How are people like Harari high functioning? How are people that like that actually high functioning members of society and getting
Right,
doing certain things?
right, exactly. That's I think that, well, for one thing, we should say, I think we've said before, but you actually cannot coherently act out a nihilistic worldview because it is incoherent. We always act with a purpose towards a meaning, no matter, like, even if you're propagating nihilism because you believe in it, you are acting towards the propagation of nihilism. That's your purpose because you believe in the meaning of nihilism. So, so to say, well, why are they inconsistent? It's like, well, you can't actually be a consistent nihilist, first of all. But in the case of secularists, they, I mean, it's essentially well recognized at this point, though some people still contend it, but I don't think there's an actual good argument against it. Is the modern secularists take a watered down form of Judeo-Christian values, like life is sacred, and say, okay, we just accept these, strip them of religious language and just accept them as a veneer. It's good to pursue human flourishing. It's good to pursue knowledge. Human life is sacred. Mention a couple of other ones. A few people have different things here and there, whatever, and they just accept those just because they won't talk about the underlying reasons why. They just, oh, of course. Well, we evolved to care about people. Okay, but if we evolved as meaningless beings for no purpose, why does it matter what we evolve towards?
Right.
They take as a given, as a dogma, as a priori axiom of that the continuation of biological life is a good thing. And the problem is there are plenty of people who go, I don't know if that's true, and here's a bunch of rational arguments why it's not true. And there's no real response to that from within the secular point of view. So so their inconsistency is there for sure as a necessity because you can't be a consistent nihilist. And then all of their virtuous action comes from holding on to Judeo-Christian values and acting them out, even though they say they don't believe in them.
So that's the
And
inherent, yeah,
yeah, and anything that they'd act out in the nihilistic direction is destructive and spreads, you know, depression and angst and suicidality and worse. So I don't have my thoughts fully formed on it, but that could be another one of the issues with secularism, where when you just have these sort of shallowly etched out values that you've inherited and watered down, then it's like, oh, we're pursuing human flourishing. Well, you could conceive of the flourishing of art as just continually getting more, chaotic and avant-garde and ooh, here's something you didn't expect, just like basically turning in all art into messing with the viewer, right? Like, oh, if we just undermine your preconceptions as much as possible, then we're just getting more and more artistic. Now the definition of art is um what? Zany creativity.
right.
Like,
Oh, it's so avant-garde.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly that. So, and there's not really a solid argument against that within secularism, because anything could be anything, because really there's no meaning, but we just have these few rules that we follow of, like, basically don't be a nihilist because we said so. But you can be a chaotic demon as much as you want. Just don't be a nihilist,
right. You can be,
because demons don't exist and there's no real point to anything. So you
uh,
know, do whatever you want. But
you can be one because they don't exist. So you
yeah,
can
yeah, 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 exactly.